Thank you. I'm Dr. K.K. Agarwal, President SIMAO and past National President, Indian Medical Association and President Heart Care Foundation of India. I have with me in a series of discussions, and I have with me Dr. Miguel Roberto George, the President of World Medical Association, who is from Brazil. He's a senior psychiatrist. I have 3 pages of his biodata. He is an honorary fellow of World Psychiatric Association. He is a, and so many. He has. If I want to describe him in one line, he is the president of World Medical Association and a psychiatrist par excellence. And 2 weeks back, WHO has conducted a seminar, and they said we are going to have an epidemic of mental health diseases once the COVID-19 comes into its peak and in a post-peak situation. And they said, I call them as coronanxiety, a corona anxiety, like we had a ringxiety after the social media came. So there are lots, at least 3 or 4 people in India has committed suicide. 10% of the society has depression. And the more you see the WhatsApp, the more you see the social media, the more you go into a phase of depression. Let's listen to Professor George Roberto Miguel regarding mental health and COVID-19 era. All yours.
Okay, thank you very much, KK. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all from the Indian Medical Association and also from all the countries that are part of the Confederation of Medical Associations in Asia and Oceania. We are now in a very difficult situation worldwide. In almost all countries of the world is being reached by the pandemic in different stages, and it's very important that besides to take care of the people who are affected by the virus, we also think about those who are not infected but are experiencing some difficulties in life because of the restrictions, particularly to mobility in many cities around the world. So I think that besides to speak a little bit about, psychiatric issues, I think we have to consider other mental health when facing this very, very, very difficult situation, something that I believe almost all of us never experienced before. So I would make some points through a PowerPoint presentation that will be easy to follow in your screens. I think that this pandemic, well, I have no conflict of interest, but I think that this COVID-19 outbreak is experienced by many of us like a kind of tsunami. We received weeks ago some warnings that something is coming to us, and not all have been prepared to receive that wave that I believe coronavirus is causing, not just to the health of the people, but also to countries' economies, which is very much disturbing because particularly in those countries that are not rich, as I believe Brazil, India, and some others are, like emergent countries or very poor countries, of poor people is much more affected by this pandemic than I think in other parts of the world is being observed. So it's for sure that due to this situation, our first priority it will be always to save as many lives as possible. And all the experts in the area recommend that to save lives, and have the health system prepared to receive all those affected, is it necessary to slow down the speed that the virus infect people, particularly vulnerable people, the elderly and those who before the pandemic were already sick. So we have to stay home. We have to be confined. We have to reduce mobility as much as possible in order to decrease the speed that this pandemic is affecting all our countries. And then when this happens, we have to provide support to those who are confined at home, as well as to the health workforce who is being placed in risk of also being infected. Unfortunately, in many countries, the health workforce do not have enough PPE, personal protective equipment, to deal with those who they are seen in hospitals. This is of particular concern because we are seeing many physicians, we are seeing many nurses and other health professionals dying or being infected, and because of that, not able anymore for at least some weeks to continue attending the people who needs them. So I think this is something that we have to keep just in front of us to try to help not be widespread. People are recommending social distance. I think that, maybe this term is not exact, is not correct. Actually, what we want from the people is physical this one from the others, not exactly social distance. Why of that? Because, we have to have those people confined at home for weeks or maybe some few months. And we have to be concerned about the mental health of people staying inside home for a long period of time. We do not have a previous experience on this situation, and we are seeing tensions, arising among family members that are putting together inside a home. And then we have to deal with these tensions. There are some measures that would help people to keep their mental health in those situations. It's important to establish a daily routine, and this daily routine will encompass remote professional work for those who are able to do that at home. We have to take care of the house, of the home, and we have to share this with other family members. But we also have to separate time for leisure activities. It's not good to be super exposed to the pandemic news. We have to be informed about that, but super exposure is something that we are seeing this provoking anxiety, sometimes panic attacks, sometimes depression in people. So being informed is vital, but not being super exposed. So we have to give time for activities that would relax us. See in the TV movies, read good books, try to learn something new, or dedicate time to something that you always wish to do but never have time to do before. This is very, very much important. Besides of that, we have to take care of what we are eating at home. We have not to abuse carbohydrates. We have to take care of our sleep, giving enough time to rest. As far as possible, we have to make some kind of exercise, physical exercise at home, and unwind. Some that likes do meditation. All those activities are very important in a way to keep our mental health in a good state. And as equally important as those activities is to be socially connected. That is why I prefer the term physical distance than social distance, because we want people to be socially connected with others, with family members, with friends, with colleagues from the work, and we have to do that through different ways of communication. And particularly avoiding in those connections, not just speaking about the virus or the pandemic, but also about other issues that are important in social relations. So stay at home, but stay socially connected. This will really be something good for you and your family members. There are some common emotional reactions that we are observing, I think, in people everywhere in the world. I think the most important are fears, different kinds of fears. Probably the most common is being infected, but people also are fearing to die, are fearing to infect or to lose close people, and being dismissed from work. Many companies, unfortunately, are dismissing people because of the economy situation they are living. I think that as far as possible, companies would be doing a good thing if they sacrifice, profits at this time and keep people employed at least for 2 months in a way that the worst part of this situation will pass by us. And another thing that people are experiencing is the fear of financial difficulties. I think everybody will be a little bit poorer at the end of this situation. But we have to believe that we will recover from that. Another kind of emotional reaction that we are observing is the feelings of helplessness and despair that people can feel. So what I am recommending to the people, if you are much more impacted in emotional terms, then do you expect that it will be normal in this situation? You have to look for some help. There are many ways to do that. I don't not know particularly in India how is this doing, but in Brazil, telemedicine, which was not allowed before the pandemic, is now recommended by the Federal Council on Medicine, and we can see patients through many ways of communication. So if you are in a state of despair, you have to look for, some help. Anxiety is very much common in this situation. Sadness, not exactly depression, but sadness, loneliness, and even boredom after some weeks at home can be observed. And those are common and normal emotional reactions. You will need help just if this is something that will be disturbing your functioning in life inside your home. And then what is of more concern to us is when appears anger and irritability. I think tensions can drive people to feel anger and irritability. And if we think about people who lives in small spaces at home. You know, there are people in the slums in Brazil, everywhere in the world, when you see 6, 8, 10 people living in a very, you know, small space. The houses are very, very tiny, if we can call that houses. And then violence, it's much more common to occur in that in those places than expected. So we have to be looking for that situation and try to see how we can help. We are seeing in our communities a lot of solidarity, much more than before the pandemic, which is something very valuable, I think, for those who has worse conditions of life. Well, besides those normal emotional reactions, we also can see, you know, the occurrence of mental disorders. We can see the exacerbation or a relapse from previous mental disorders, or we can see also the onset of a new mental disorder to some of the people. And the most common mental disorders observed in situations like this one is the generalized anxiety disorder, phobias, and hypochondria. We can see some people experience panic attacks. We can see a rising depression in many people. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is something that we really expect that will increase after the pandemic, not during the pandemic. And even during the pandemic, we have to take care about alcohol and substance abuse. When we see and when we recommend to people, you have to have a healthy lifestyle, even inside your home, I think it's very important not to abuse alcohol and not to use drugs, you know, to relieve some bad emotional feeling that you are experiencing. So take care with alcohol and substance abuse at home. On regards of what happened to physicians and other health professionals, the situation is not very much different from what we can see in the general population. Usually the physicians and other health professionals will experience the same emotional reactions or present even a mental disorder, as we can see in the general population. But what sometimes we can, and we are seeing in our colleagues, is feeling of frustration and of to not have enough competence to deal with the situation. This is something that sometimes is linked with the fears of being infected, as I said, particularly due to the insufficient number of personal protective equipments that we are observing in many countries, in many hospitals, even in rich countries, they are fighting for getting more PPEs. And besides the fear of being infected, physicians and other health workers has a fear to infect relatives when returning home after work. So not a lot of care needs to be taken by those people when entering home. Usually they have to leave shoes outside, immediately take off their clothes and put aside to be washed, immediately take a bath, and then just a shower, and then just after that, you know, you can interact with your family members. And we are seeing some reports from health professionals that when they take a public transport, sometimes because they are using a white cloth, as is usual in many countries, they experience stigma and even discrimination in those public spaces. So These are things that we really are observing in our nowadays. Or another thing which is increasing, was observed before, but is increasing very much with health professionals, is burnout. The burnout syndrome, exhaustion at work. And there are, in many places, insufficient health personnel to attend the people who are reaching hospitals. And this is something that can really impact the quality of the work that our colleagues are doing in the health services. But you know, I would like to have also a comment on a positive thing that people are experiencing, not just physicians and other health professionals, but even lay people are experiencing this. The Inter-Agency Standing Committee of the United Nations published a paper recently where they say, I will quote, some people may have some positive experiences, such as pride about finding ways of coping and resilience. Faced with disasters, community members often show great altruism and cooperation, and people may experience great satisfaction from helping others. So this is something that we are observing in many communities, and even inside and among hospitals and among health professionals. Finally, I think that I would like to leave here a final message to my colleagues, physicians, and also to other health professionals working at this particular moment. I think my final message as a psychiatrist and psychotherapist is that even if you are feeling overwhelmed, try to give something more to the COVID-19 patients you are caring for. Remember that you have a singular person in front of you when you are attending a COVID-19 patient. So besides to provide them with what is necessary for their physical health, with your professional competence, try to show them empathy and compassion. It's very important for them because they probably are fearing to die. You have and you must express your affection, if possible and protected, holding their hand. But if it's not possible, at least saying to them some words of support and hope. You will do something very good for them. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir. And let me have some questions which we have received. One of them is, how common will be PTSD amongst the medical professionals all over the world? Do we have any estimate that how many doctors actually will suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder after this pandemic?
We do not have yet numbers available to us, unfortunately, but I am sure that this will come after the news will reach, the journals. Usually this will be reported through some kind of scientific papers through journals. Besides my clinical work here in Brazil, I am the chairman of the Research Ethical Committee of my university, the one who regulates all the research projects that are submitted to our people. And what we are seeing is that a lot of new researches are being put in place, trying to, measure and catch everything to what is happening in this situation. We are seeing some, basic sciences research projects. We are seeing research about, to build new kind of ventilators. that they are lacking in the field. But we are also seeing people trying to, go to this through telephone, because it's not possible to contact people in another way, and making questionnaires and trying to see what is happening with them under these circumstances. I think, very interesting data will appear in the following months after this situation ends, because we are all hoping that this situation ends well for as much as people as possible.
So I just want to add before I say thank you to you, because every adversity is an opportunity. In India, for the first time, we have seen particulate matter 2.5 becoming nearing normal. Our typhoid, jaundice, diarrhea, H1N1, all cases have gone down, and the general mortality has gone down by 20%. So every adversity has an opportunity, and if we start looking the positive aspects of COVID, once we come out of it, maybe all of us will be a different person after the COVID pandemic is over.
I am sure of that. I think that sometimes we can experience a feeling that we are being submitted of some kind of experience. We like, sometimes we can see us as like rats that are being put in a kind of experiment, because this is so new, so inedited, so, that's really something that would impact our lives, I think, forever. We don't know very well what will be and what will happen, with us. But I am very much sure that it will be impossible for every single man or woman, to leave this situation, exactly as we enter in this situation. I think many things, people are rethinking their lives. People are rethinking their patterns of, consumptions in terms of buying things, or what we have to give more value in our lives. I think this will be impacted the way people work. Remote work will be much more common than before. This will decrease the amount of people, in the streets, which will impact the traffic patterns that we have. So I think a lot of things will be impacted in our social and personal lives after this pandemic. And I hope that for good, I hope that every one of us will leave this situation stronger than we enter in that.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Miguel, for joining us, and we will send you the link. And at least 100,000 doctors over the next 1 year repeatedly will watch this segment. Thank you very much for joining us with here. Thank you with folding hands. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much. Stay well.